months since that last hug at the airport gate, never knowing that it was the final goodbye. India saw one of its deadliest air disasters in the history of crashes. Air India 171 gone just minutes after takeoff. Revisiting the crash site here at Ahmedabad, what remains here are the families of the deceased, the victims who seek many answers. At the crash site, NDTV found family members of those who lost their kin to the crash. They had come in remembrance of their tragedy after 2 months. We visited their house to know more. A mother ran toward the fire, not away. Sita Behan, who ran a tea stall near BJ Medical College, risked her life to save her son. 14-year-old Akash had come to give her lunch and dozed off under the shade of a tree. That's when the crash happened.
वो आ गई तो मेरा बचाने गई तो मेरे को वापस आ गई मेरे बचाने की बहुत कोशिश कर, मेरा लड़का नहीं बचा। मेरा बेटा सामने हो सोया था, अब चाय की किटली पर था, ओटीपी लेके आए थे मेरे लिए। वो आ गए ने इसलिए जलन गए। वो लड़का के बचाने गए तो आग सामने आ गई, मेरे को लड़का नहीं बचा। बचाने की कोशिश बहुत करा, मदद तो मालूम नहीं मेरे को, तो कुछ पूछा नहीं है। मेरा लड़का गया तो मेरे क्या पूछना चाहिए? मेरे पैसा की कमी नहीं है, मेरा लड़का की कमी थी। मेरा लड़का गया तो मेरे को रात दिन नींद नहीं आते मेरे को। तकलीफ तो है मेरे को, बहुत तकलीफ। मेरा बेटा चला गया।
1:37 p.m. cleared for takeoff. 1:39 p.m. a mayday call.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
Moments later, the crash. Hundreds of lives changed in seconds. On board the Dreamliner were people from every walk of life. Some returning from festivals, some flying home to a new chapter, some never to return.
I lost my younger brother Swapnil and his wife Yoga and my another baby Alpa. I lost 3 members of my family in this crash. Actually, all the 3 had a different reason to go, but primarily it was my brother's business engagement there. He was to attend some trade exhibition, so his wife was accompanying him. I think when you listen something like that, immediately your natural defense mechanism come into an action and you start refusing to believe that something very bad has happened. So in the morning, though we heard the plane crash news, till very late evening we were hopeful that, our family members' name would be there in the survivors list. So we kept on hoping till 6-7 o'clock in the evening, till the authorities announced that nobody could survive. And of course it was a great shock to all of us. And why it has happened, the question was why. Of course there is another question, that why us, my family member. But if we put that question apart, the second question comes into mind, why this has happened, what may be the root cause of it. Every day thousands of the people fly and so many aircrafts fly, and suddenly something like this happens. It raises many questions that we need to know. Whenever this kind of incidents happen, I feel everyone should be working on getting to the root cause of it, that why it has happened. whether it is a some maintenance problem, whether it is a technical fault, whether it is a design inadequacy or design fault, whatever it is, we need to learn and then take a corrective action where this kind of incidences don't interest, but really try to work for getting to the root of the this incident. And fair and free investigation has to happen, and nobody should try to shield anything into this, and it should be completely transparent and in the larger interest of all the humanity. I feel the preliminary report is very vague and very inadequate, and I also wonder what was the need for putting a preliminary report which was more like a guessing of the things. So instead of answering anything, I feel it raises more questions, and I feel that it is not at all satisfactory in any manner. And I also feel that it's quite selective in putting the data to the public. What was the need for putting a selective data? Is there any attempt to point out to certain causes for it? Like already Western media has started propagating that it is a pilot's error or pilot's deliberate attempt to switch off the fuel cutoff line. So it was like as if supporting to that kind of a thought process or something, which is, I'm really surprised to know that, surprised to learn that. And if since it is in larger interest, I feel that the raw data of flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder has to be and other evidences which can help to independent probe or investigation on this crash has to be given to the victims' families also. We are in touch with a lawyer and even the agencies who can do an independent investigation in this. So if it has to be transparent, and this data has to be given to the parallel agencies also who are sincerely wish to do an investigation in larger interest.
मेरे बेटे का नाम परवेज है और मेरी बेटी का नाम जुवेरिया था। वो प्लेन क्रैश में ख़त्म हो गए। और ये मेरी बहू है, ये इसका लड़का है, 20 दिन का है। इसकी लड़की को हमने नहीं बताया, वो डिप्रेशन में जा रही है, टेंशन में बहुत ले चुकती है, खाना पीना बंद कर देती है। उसके डैडी ऑफ हो गए, उसको नहीं बताया हमने उसको।
And despair for families. Fragments of metal, fragments of life lie scattered. No amount of compensation can bring back what they have lost. For those who lost their loved ones,
कुछ हमने ऐसी न्यूज़ सुनी कि पायलट का फॉल्ट था, कुछ तो हमें बताओ सच। आज ये लोग कुछ लोग बाहर ही नहीं आने दे रहे। बस आज इतने 2 महीने के ऊपर हो गया है, इसका अभी पूरा रिपोर्ट बाहर आ ही नहीं रहा है। पूरा रिपोर्ट कि क्या हुआ, किसकी गलती है, आप हमें आके बताओ। अगर कुछ बताओगे तो हमें भी मालूम, हमें इतना तो मालूम होना चाहिए कि हमारे फैमिली मेम्बर जो हमने खोए हैं तो किस रीज़न से खोए, किसकी गलती है। मैडम एक चीज़ ऐसी है, अगर आप कितना भी दे दोगे, हमारी जान के बदले कॉम्पनसेशन के लिए कुछ मायने नहीं रखता है। ये पहली बात तो यही है। ठीक है, फिर भी एक तसल्ली के लिए जो दे रहे, जो रूल के हिसाब से मिल रहा है, ठीक है। अभी जो हो गया है हम उसको एक्सेप्ट तो करना ही है, हमें कुछ भी करके। और आगे का तो अभी मैडम एक चीज़ ऐसा है कि पैसों से मैं नहीं जान सकता, मैं ही मान सकता हूँ कि जो हम फेस करने वाले हैं, जो मेरी भाभी फेस करने वाली है, ठीक है। और जो अभी रिसेंटली मेरा नेफ्यू आया है, जस्ट 20 डेज़, उसने एक बाप खोया है बिफोर बर्थ, ठीक है। जो आज 20 डेज़ का है, 10 डेज़ के बाद उसकी डिलीवरी होने वाली थी। आज उसका 20 दिन हो गए हैं अभी, जो उसकी डिलीवरी के पहले उसका बाप उसने खो दिया है। तो ये सब चीज़ क्या है, पैसों से नहीं होने वाला कवर, ठीक है मैडम। ये जो चीज़ है वो ठीक है, फिर भी हम दिल को तसल्ली देने के लिए हम कर सकते हैं। बाकी जो हमें चाहिए वो नहीं होगा, पैसों से कवर नहीं होगा।
a preliminary report exists, but too many questions remain. Was it a mechanical fault or something deeper? We spoke to aviation attorney from US aviation law firm Beasley Allen, Michael Andrews. Turning our attention to Boeing now, of course. So, going back a little, in 2018, there was a Lion Air crash in Indonesia. And then this was the 737 MAX 8. And 5 months later, there was the Ethiopian Airlines crash, again, a 737 MAX 8. And you were also in the case for the Ethiopian Airlines, right? Yeah. So now this time round, we have a Boeing 787 Dreamliner crash. In the Ethiopian airline crash, through the investigation, we now know that it was an issue with Boeing's MCAS system. So again, coming back to the same question, is there a possibility that with this Air India crash, there could have been a software malfunction?
Yeah, and that's really sort of a history that leads us up to that question. Because in those prior crashes, we know that an automated onboard computer system called for uncommanded inputs that changed the flight path of the planes and ultimately resulted in the crash. This has been widely reported in the media, obviously, for both cases. So now we're here in India looking at a case in which we don't know yet what may have caused changes in the switches. We don't know what changes may have been called for in the FADEC system or the throttle control malfunctioning accommodation system. And so, again, those are possibilities.
We asked the attorney, what is the plan of action forward? Would the firm move the courts against Boeing or Air India or both?
We start with what happened. And so in this case, if we are able to obtain the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, we can put those two together with our experts and put together a plan that shows us exactly what happened. If the evidence on the black box data indicates that there's an issue with the design or manufacturing defect of some sort, then we would certainly seek to hold the manufacturers responsible in courts in the United States under American product liability laws. If, however, the data shows that it is an Air India or pilot issue, then those claims would most likely fall under the Montreal Convention.
Speaking about, interests, Western media reports of this crash has built a narrative towards pilot error, pilot sabotage. Now, of course, these are speculations that we have had from some very prominent Western media houses. How do you see these sort of reports as, is this a way to shift focus away from something that maybe we aren't questioning right now?
Yeah, so what we see typically is that this narrative doesn't really originate with the media. It's picked up by the media and reported, but it's largely reported in a vacuum as a result of the lack of all of the evidence. Right. This gets me back to the small, out of context pieces of information that have been released. The small piece of conversation in which we are told, and we haven't heard it, but we've been told that one pilot says, "Why did you turn off?" or "Why did you switch off?" and the other one says, I did not. We don't know how that's said. We don't know the context in which that is said. And so that is a small piece of out of context information that can be interpreted in many ways, right? Coupled with the small piece of information in the preliminary report, which talks about the switch position.
Yeah. At the crash site, burnt metal and shattered dreams. What used to be a home is now a monument of grief, and for some, a tourist stop. While life in Ahmedabad moves on, the families stay frozen in time, waiting still for justice. In the days that have followed the crash, the wreckage told a story no one wanted to hear. A deadly aviation safety episode. What happened and how did this crash happen, and could it have been prevented? Why does it always take loss of lives for any sort of accountability to come about? These are some questions that remain unanswered. In Ahmedabad, with camera person Ashok Mahale, this is Tanushka Datta for NDTV.